It's been a long time since I filled out a 1040 easy form. So, you gotta have the tools.
This is the one and only, the original podcast where you can find yours and your business's true value. You're listening to Our Value.
Brought to you by America's Insulation Source, IDI Distributors.
You want to hear from the best contractors, suppliers, and consultants that dedicate themselves to more than just survival in the business world?
Industry professionals that are dedicated to excellence in every aspect of their business.
Our Value has them all here to share that same motivation and knowledge with you. Tune in and grow a more successful, profitable, educated, and recognized business. Listen to the Our Value podcast to become the industry leader in your market. Find your value with Our Value.
Welcome back, those of you, to the Our Value podcast. And if you don't know him from the last time, you should go back and listen to the 5 reasons insulation companies often fail. But I have with me Joe Arrigo. Joe, how are you today?
Hey, Ken, it's so good to be with you and the IDI folks today. I'm really looking forward to talking about business success this week.
This is going to be a good one. We are talking about the 5. Joe, is it 5 or you got more than 5?
You know me, Ken. I struggled to constrain it to 5 topics, but I think the topics that I've got here about business success all fall in line with what we talked about last time in the things that differentiate successful insulation contractors from the average insulation contractor.
Perfect. Well, guys, with that, we're going to jump right in. So what's your number 1 for success?
You know, the number 1 thing is, first of all, to me is I couldn't keep it to 5 here, Ken, to be honest with you, but the number 1 thing is creating it. So,
good.
Those that know me will know that I struggle to keep it that short. But the first thing is to create a culture, because our inventory is our most expensive thing, but our people are our most valued. Our labor, our employees. So I think creating a culture within your business that recognizes employees, creates the correct atmosphere, whether you consider that a family atmosphere or just one that employees feel valued and that they know that they're important to the company's success and that they respect, coworkers and leaders in that business. So I would say that the successful side of contractors create a culture because that minimizes turnover, high job satisfaction, and it really pays huge dividends to the owner to, create that culture.
I would agree with that. I think you get less injuries, less theft, more dedication and commitment. Culture really is one of the keys to any business, not necessarily construction. But, if you care about people, then they're going to care about you. They're going to go up and down. People fail. We're designed to fail. But I think if you truly love them, you treat them like family, you're just so much better off. So I totally agree. What's your number 2?
My number 2 piece of advice is to look for talent everywhere. I think, people don't draw pictures in kindergarten saying, "Hey, I want to be an insulation installer just like my dad." They're saying, "I want to be a doctor, a nurse, or a fireman, or a policeman, or something else." Maybe that is a little more publicly glamorous. So I say look for talent everywhere. When you think about the waiter or waitress that takes care of you in a restaurant, if you think about the customer service you achieve, if you get customer excellence, for example, at an automotive dealership or something like that, if you have an excellent salesperson that handles your account, just look for talent everywhere, because honestly, people aren't knocking on our doors to do what it is we do. And, sometimes recruiting from outside our industry is the only way that you're going to get the right level of talent.
Wouldn't it be funny if the next time you went into the local Red Lobster, the manager came up and said, "Hey, don't take any more of my people"? At that point, everyone there that feels like there's a good job out there is telling people in the restaurant about you.
Yeah, for sure. I think, anything that minimizes employee turnover, I think some owners will have the attitude, an old school attitude of, hey, I don't want to invest a lot in training because I have high employee turnover, and they're going to go to my competitor. I struggle with that because that's telling me the contractor is saying, I'd rather have unskilled or untrained people because then they're not as attractive to a competitor to come in and poach or whatever. I struggle with that because I think the investment in training and the personal and professional growth in your employees is extremely important. And somebody's going to leave you and maybe they go to a competitor, but I'd rather have trained employees that are really well skilled and informed versus having a bunch of untrained or unskilled people that other people aren't necessarily looking for.
Well, and when you talk about look for talent everywhere, you just never know. You may wind up training someone on, what we got into, which was building science. And all of a sudden you've got someone that's out there selling sound walls. We're talking an installer, but yet they go out on a project and they sell the sound walls. They sell a better air sealing package. And what a benefit that would be to have on a job site. Somebody with a 5,000 square foot home being built, on a couple acres in town, and the owner comes in and they're seeing the insulation go in, and the guy turns to him and says, hey, for this reason, you should do this. Well, we want to do that. Well, you should tell the builder. Tell him while I'm here. I'll do it today. You just never know who you might light on fire by truly appreciating the talent that you have.
Yeah, I think on residential construction, oftentimes, we deal with the general contractor that's building the building, and we don't necessarily interact with the homeowner or occupant of the building to find out how they live in their house and what, maybe, Junior likes, some music like rap or something that's not, your cup of tea. And you think about, hey, we can do some sound insulation here, or you see that they have a home theater and maybe the wife works as a, NICU nurse or something at night, and the rest of the family's up during the day, things like that. When we know how an occupant intends to live in their building, we can oftentimes make very cost, price things that are very affordable, but have a huge impact in the quality of the life and acoustical quality. Your house is your castle, and more of us are spending more and more time in our home than we ever dreamt. I'm talking to you from my home office, for example, and never dreamt that I'd spend as much time on a Zoom meeting or in my home office as I have in the last year and a half. So, just thinking about things like that, how we operate on our buildings, oftentimes leads us to suggest things that will make an improvement, and they don't have to be really expensive improvements, and they can make a big impact on the quality of the perceived value that the general contractor ends up getting credit for. Really,
I like it. So, what's next on your good list?
Well, the good list is kind of a good habit. I see that, in order to do what we say about job costing every job and things like that, it either increases overhead because you've got to have human resource assets doing that, for you in the office probably. But I find the best contractors are using a software to help them run their business. I mean, the accounting software, handles your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, and your payroll and some things like that. But, insulation contractor software like, Bidit, that IDI has spent a lot of money and time investing and done a great job of getting that up and off the ground. I look at software as being the guardrails on the highway. It's not going to run your business for you. It's not going to solve all your problems, but it's probably going to keep you from running off the road, because there's certain key things you've got to input into that software to get your work orders, which is really what we're after, right? We want to dispatch that installer quickly, efficiently. We want to get our proposals to the contractor. And once we've won the bid, so those things we've got to put in there. Well, once we put those things in the software, now we know what all our estimated costs are. All we have to do is count our inventory as it's returned and input that into the computer. And all of a sudden, guess what? I get magically what estimator is most accurate, what installers' productivity looks like, how many feet did they install in a day, how much of a set did they install in a day on the spray foam side of it. It just gives us a world of opportunity, and it gives us the data that I'm saying we really need to have.
I totally agree, Joe. The fact is, if you're not using software to run a business, you're kind of in the dark ages. There's no other business that operates that way. Whether it be a restaurant or a store of any kind. And the truth is, I said it before, there was a time when you could succeed at this by accident, but today everything moves so fast between the texts that you're getting, messages that come in online. Hopefully you're doing retrofit and online business and getting higher margin work, but then you've got your ordering, then you've got your inventory, you've got your forecasting, you've got your job costing. By the time you look at all of the hats an owner needs to wear, if you've got even 2 rigs, you're going to be forgetting to call people back. And then you wake up at 3:00 in the morning. Oh, I never called Susan back. Susan has moved on. And quite frankly, feels like you're a contractor that didn't want her business. It's that kind of world that we live in today. I need software on my phone that says, hey, you're supposed to call so-and-so. I needed a reminder for our podcast. It's just, we've got to place things around us, to your point, guardrails. And you mentioned Bidit. Bidit is a great way to do that. What I like about Bidit and what IDI did with that is that they allowed insulators to help drive the build of the software. Some of the ones I used in the past or attempted to use were really, I could have been putting up drywall. The software would have been the same. It was not built toward my business. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, if you're a software programmer or developer, right? There's only so many insulation contractors in the United States. It's not like Microsoft Word or Excel where there's millions and millions of customers that are going to use it. So you got to have a product that's flexible enough that other trades would be attracted and use it. Now, the difference with Bidit, and I know it's still it's somewhat in its infancy, but it is driven by our industry and the input. The interesting thing is, the more contractors that get on that software and give input and feedback, I think, talking to Chris Novogratz and Joe Novogratz, I think the more incentive they have to continue to invest, their money in improving that product and investing in the next version of that product so that it gets better and better and better. And it is very specific only to our industry, right? It's only driven by our industry, and it doesn't have to be flexible because, quite frankly, you guys aren't trying to sell this software to drywall contractors and landscapers and other things, right? So I think, as more people get on it, I think that, this was a big investment on IDI's part, but it was a generous investment to our industry, honestly, just simply because it is specific to our industry. It doesn't generate revenue, but it generates profitable business. I know plenty of businesses that are growing. The question is, do they know if they're growing profitably? If you don't, make a commitment to crunching these numbers or using a software product, yeah, you're growing. Yeah, you're busier than you've ever been. You got more work. You maybe have more installers and more equipment, but are you more profitable? That's the big question.
I think that's a great answer. I've worked with many a contractor that, tell them, well, what if we did this? Well, how much did I bid you last time? This. Well, add $200. You just don't know unless you're able to track and manage and then go back and do the math.
Well, the other thing is that, we're looking at price increases depending on what products. You're looking at price increases that are happening, in some of our insulation products quarterly. And if you're not inputting those changes in costs into your bidding process, right? You're behind you're already behind. So you're losing, 8% margin on every single job. If you haven't, said, hey, I know that I had a price increase effective January 10th, on this product, and you're not getting that into the computer early as you can, so that the work that you're bidding, which means you're going to do it in 60 or 90 days, realistically, as an insulation contractor, your numbers are already wrong. So software, this business can be run on Excel or number 2 pencil and a Big Chief notepad, but it just depends on how much time or how many resources do you have. That software saves me money. Honestly, it saves me money, because if I use software, it's not that I want to put somebody out of a job, but software, as long as I put good data in, I'm going to get good data out, versus I'm going to have someone in my office crunching these numbers, constantly. And you're going to have to pay for that. So you have to pay for it one way or the other, honestly.
Yep. It's been a long time since I filled out a 1040 easy form. So,
Yeah.
you gotta have the tools. So what's your other one?
I mentioned it earlier. It's the difference between selling their work and proposing it. My example, I said, having to pay a premium to ensure supply in this unprecedented time and to complete work for your contractors is the message that I think insulation contractors should be having with their general contractors. The fact that their price accurately reflects the current market and materials and the conditions that we're in, but we're navigating the supply and labor issues in a manner that's going to keep our customers, which is usually the general contractors, project moving forward in a timely fashion. And that's worth being paid, and it's worth being paid a premium in today's market. And that's what's going to drive profitability. It's going to allow you to start to say, okay, maybe we can't say yes to every contractor. Let's cut off 3 or 4, builders that are constantly, high maintenance or slow pay, or whatever it is that you're going to say is the least attractive customer to you, but you're basing it on data like profitability and, how much resources you can deploy and stay profitable. So you got to sell it, and you've got to communicate that, and you can't do that via email. You can't just send somebody a proposal or bid, via email. Because honestly, one, is it really truly apples and apples? We're relying on the general contractor to say, oh yeah, it's apples and apples. They're always going to tell you it's apples and apples. They're never going to get down to the fact that maybe, you chose an R15 and somebody else chose an R19. And the general contractor might say, well, R19 is a higher R value, but in some markets, R15 might cost you more than R19. So depending on the type of construction, sticking an R19 in a 2x4 wall, you end up with an R13 anyway. So you really are not meeting code. So there's all these little things that we should be looking at, but it gets down to selling the work and communicating the value versus just hitting the send button, which is proposing or bidding work.
I like it. And I'll finish mine. To add to that, I would say any good business, I go into a restaurant, they're going to try and sell me a drink and a dessert. They're going to lean toward their margins. You've got to look for higher margin work. You've got to look where the market's going, but you've got to be digital. So I'm looking at an approach of, if I'm going to find higher margin work, that means selling the add-ons to builders. That means looking for retrofits, following where the government's going, looking for any incentives locally, and aiming for Mrs. Jones, my favorite retrofit customer, and whatever business needs their business to be in a healthier, better building. I think between all that and what we've covered, Joe, that is a mountain. Joe, this has been fantastic. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the time and the thought that you've put into this today. And, I just look forward to some of the next podcasts we're going to do. Again, I want to make sure we do bidding. I want to make sure that we do job costing, but also let's get into scheduling and recruiting and some of the other things as well. And I look forward to doing that with you, Joe.
I do too, Ken. I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on the podcast. I mean, as you know, I'm very passionate about family-owned and operated businesses, that independent installation contractor. These are the good times, as no matter how much we might, as a business owner, be pulling our hair out and struggling with, inventory, supply, trucks, labor, all these things. Honestly, we're going to look back at this and remember these are the good times when we're in a sold-out market, when housing starts were very high. And so we need to, take the opportunity to make smart investments, to deploy our resources wisely, and to build a nest egg that moving forward is going to allow us to weather the storm when this market changes, because the market's always changing. Hopefully it doesn't change, for the worse for quite a long time for us, but being prepared now is this is the good time. So I really look forward to helping installation contractors, and IDI has done a great job of really doing all kinds of training and education all over the country. So thank you.
Well, there you have it, guys. Went through a lot of information today. Hopefully this helps. If you like it, share the podcast with other people, and we look forward to being in front of you next time on the R Value Podcast.